Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Kerrville. We're so excited to see you today. I would ask you to mute your phones. If you're online, please mute your computer so that we can all give our guests the privacy he needs or the quiet he needs to give us a seat. And also, please check in Facebook and let people know that you're attending your Rotary meeting. And there's a puppy online that is really excited to be Rotary too. So, yes, if we can please silence all computers. Thank you so much. Okay, I would like to invite Ken Azel to give our invocation and lead us in the pledge.
It's been an interesting week for us all. I had 3 grandchildren and 2 children who had the virus. I understand that while we've all been cooped in, most people have redone their houses and bought a dog. I have done both during that period. And so I'll go get my dog in a little bit. My dog is not the barking one at the moment. I thought I wasn't here last week because of what went on last Wednesday. And I thought it might be good, considering what's going on this week, to pray for our country. Let us pray. Almighty God, we humbly thank you for this good land which you have given us for our inheritance. We pray that we may always prove to be a people mindful of your favor and glad to do your will. Bless this land with honest labor, clear thinking, and mutual regard. Save us from violence, discord, and confusion, from pride and arrogance, and from every evil way. Preserve and increase our liberties and fashion into one united nation, this people of many races and tongues. Fill with the spirit of wisdom those to whom we entrust the authority of government, that they may seek justice and peace, and that through obedience to your will, we may show forth your praise among the nations of the earth. In time of prosperity, fill our hearts with thankfulness. In times of trouble, do not allow our trust in you to fail. We ask this in the name of God. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. The one thing I wanted to point out for our virtual guest is the Croc is adjusting some things today. So if you have, I don't want to say that in a negative light. What I want to say is it's amazing to me to see us still come together and still be able to meet. The Croc has jumped through hoops every single week to make sure that we can all be together. And I think that maybe we should give them a round of applause. Okay, so I want to congratulate Clint Morris. I want to congratulate Clint Morris on doing such a good job for us to get us timely and important information. And he's done it again this week with a great speaker with great content. So I would like to invite Clint to come up and introduce our speaker.
Well, thank you, President Tammy, for your kind words, but I want to reiterate again, the reason we have great speakers every week is because everybody in the club has continued to make suggestions and recommendations, and that's what's driving our, what I think are wonderful speakers every week. Now, we have a wonderful one today. He's a neighbor of mine, but I didn't realize how how famous he was until I read his little bio that he sent me. He's a graduate of the University of Texas at Austin. He graduated with distinction from law school. He has been a real estate and commercial litigation attorney statewide for 45 years. He's been a member of the American Arbitration Association Commercial Arbitration and Mediation panels for 30 years. That may mean nothing to y'all, but to a lawyer, you don't get there unless you're respected by everybody in the bar. He has been our county judge since 2018, a leader in many civic and municipal organizations, and I'm particularly impressed. He's married to Vicki. He has 4 kids and 6 grandchildren, but the most important thing is he has 2 labs. And he's bested me there because at my house, I can only get permission from management for 1. So without more, let's give a warm Rotary welcome to the Honorable Rob Kelly, who will speak to us about 2020.
They're telling me to lean into the mic, but I usually don't have a problem with people hearing me. Can y'all hear me? I thought so. I want you to know I have 5 handwritten pages of notes. Talk about anything you want to talk about. They told me that I could speak on whatever topic I wanted. I chose not to speak on politics. My focus is a little bit more local these days. But I thought what I would do is talk to you about county issues. But I don't want to do this in a long prepared speech where I tell you everything that I think you ought to know. I would rather do it more conversationally and informally, like a town hall meeting, and invite you to let me know what it is that you want to talk to me about. There are 3 major topics that I want to talk about that are going on with the county. First of all is the COVID response. And I know there are going to be questions about that, and I want to address that. We did a little bit of that at my lunch table today. And I'm happy to share with you what we know. I will start off by telling you that there will be a call center, and I'm prepared to give you the new number. If you want to write it down, feel free to. It's going to be 830-315-5900. 01, 02, and 03, 04. There'll be 5 lines. All of those lines were contributed free by Hill Country Telephone. We're not going to start staffing that call center until we have the doses to be able to administer to people, but that will be the phone number. And they're also working on an online portal as we speak today. They should have that done by this afternoon. But I want to talk to you about COVID for those that want to know about COVID. There are a couple other things going on at the county that I think are interesting that you maybe would be interested in hearing about, maybe not. And that is that we're doing, you probably read about the county's been acquiring property in anticipation of our growth and what we're out of space at the courthouse. Y'all been to the courthouse, right? Everybody's been to our old courthouse? Well, we hired an architect about a year and a half ago to come in and come up with a plan to help us remodel things at the courthouse to be able to accommodate more. And we found out all we were doing was rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. So we put together a committee, a capital improvement planning committee, to plan on what growth the county needs over the next decade. And that is what we call the Capital Improvement Planning Committee, or the CIP. We've already made 3 significant purchases in the county that I'm prepared to talk to you about and what we're going to do with it and what the plan is going forward in anticipation of a future bond issue. Another thing that we're doing at the county that is of significance is the new public defender's office. And that's something that is near and dear to my heart. I've worked very diligently on that for the past year. And there's a lot of very worthwhile information to share on that. So those are the 3 topics that I'm prepared to talk to you about. But I don't know what y'all want to hear. So if you want me to, let's just do a show of hands. How many people want me to start talking about COVID? That seems to be pretty universal. How many people are interested in finding out what kind of property we're buying and why? Okay. And then finally, who wants to know about this public defender's office that everybody's been talking about? Good. So we'll kind of take them in that order. Let's talk about COVID first. How many people think that I have emergency power to do anything? Good, because I do not. And nor does the mayor, because the governor took them all away from us at the very beginning of this. We cannot do anything that is, quote, inconsistent with his orders. So anything more than what he's ordered, we can't do. Anything less, we can't do because he's ordered to do it. So a lot of people think that there's local authority to do something, and there's not. I got a lot of calls when this thing went out a couple of weeks ago about closing the bars. And they feel like they've been singled out unfairly to be closed. But, and they were complaining to me, why did you close the bars? I didn't close the bars. The bars were closed per the governor's order, GA 32, which has very significant provisions in it, which has a formula by which you calculate whether the bars can be open or not. And that's all based upon our hospital capacity. And what that order says, if we exceed 15% of our hospital capacity, then automatically certain things happen. One of which was to shut down the bars, okay? And that's also in conjunction with the TABC, the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission, because they have authority over those bars as well. And they had to register with them in order to be able to open. So that was not anything that was done locally. I know everybody follows the numbers on COVID, and I'm talking about hospitalizations right now and hospital capacity. And those two go kind of hand in hand. And I like to explain to people of how that works and how to pay attention to the numbers and what are the most significant numbers to pay attention to. Everybody wants to know how many active cases we have. As of today, Deb Thomas delivered to me before I came over here today, we have 413 active cases. That's not good news, right? I will tell you, when we met back on December the 28th, and I was very concerned about where we were with it, we were almost at 500 back then. And what you're seeing is the numbers are gradually dropping, but they're still very alarmingly high. And the reason that they're gradually dropping is the recovery rate is doing so well. We're finding that a lot of people are recovering from COVID. Now, the second number that you follow on a regular basis, when you get the information, always look at the active cases first. Secondly, look at the fatalities. Our fatalities are up to 48, 3 more just the other day. Nearly all of the fatalities, not all, but almost all, are coming from our long-term care facilities and nursing homes and the elderly. And these are people that are over 65 with these chronic conditions, or what they like to call comorbidities. And that's where most of the fatalities are coming from. And we're all very concerned that it's as high as it is, but we have to remember our demographics here in the community. We have a large number of nursing homes, and so we're going to be more vulnerable in those areas. The third thing with the numbers that I encourage you to always pay attention to, and what I tell people is the most important thing to pay attention to, are the number of people in the hospital, the hospitalizations. Remember when I was talking about the GA 32 governor order, about the capacity? Well, Peterson is licensed to have 124 beds. And common sense would tell me that we'd have to look at 15% of 124, right? Wrong. DSHS, the Department of State Health Services, has certified that we have a capacity, a hospitalization capacity of 88. Don't ask me why. I can't reason with these people. They just tell me it's 88, okay? So when you look at 15% of 88, if 15% of 124 would be 18.6, which means you got 18 and you go over the 18, then everything happened. One of the things that happened when we went over the 15%, and if we do the 88, it's 13 beds, 13 hospitalizations. When we went over the 15% capacity, 15% hospitalization, one of the other things that happened is you remember early on when we had low COVID cases and we were one of the best counties, we were the biggest county in the state of Texas that got the exemption to open up to 75%. It was 50% at the time, remember? Everybody remember that? Well, we lost that exemption when the hospitalizations exceeded the 15%. And that's what kicked us from 75% open capacity back to 50%. It all happens automatically. But it's on the basis of hospitalizations. In December, when we looked at this, and we're trying to figure out what to predict for January and February, What we were looking at is our hospitalizations had risen from the mid-teens up into the mid-30s. And if you could just visualize for a moment, if the state of Texas thinks that our 15% capacity is 13 hospitalizations and we're running at 30 to 35, then we're significantly over where the state wants us to be in order to be able to control this virus. Now, I talk about hospitalizations and tell you that it's so important because I talked with Corey Edmondson and we had a stakeholders meeting a week ago, and he told me 3 different times, PRMC is not overwhelmed, because the whole purpose in having these limitations is to not allow our healthcare system to be overwhelmed, because then we don't have any place to put anybody. And we can't transfer them to San Antonio and Austin because they have no capacity. So if we fill up our hospital with all COVID patients, then we can't take care of the people with routine illnesses. And so that's the whole purpose behind this. And so as I was listening to Corey, and Corey's from Amarillo, I see Stockton here. I grew up in Midland, as he knows. But in West Texas, we have a little play with words. And so I looked at Corey and I said, Corey, you keep telling me we're not overwhelmed. I said, can we see it from where we are? And he says, we're whelmed. Right now, we are very whelmed. We're not overwhelmed, but we're teetering close. Last week, we were up to 34 hospitalizations. Today, I'm happy to report, I know this is faint praise, but happy to report that our hospitalizations are down to 23. And that's getting more and more manageable. As long as you see those active case numbers dropping, as long as you see those hospitalizations dropping, and hopefully the fatalities not rising, then you'll know whether or not we're making progress or we're not. And that's the best indicators I can give you on that. Vaccine. I was on a conference call with Dr. John Hellerstedt, who is the governor's #1 epidemiologist on this pandemic. And he is the commissioner of the Department of State Health Services, along with another, I think every other county judge in the state, but we're still on the call, okay? And I just want to repeat one of the things he told us there towards the end that I thought was very significant. And he emphasized this to us, that with the vaccine, there is light at the end of this tunnel. You wanted to know if there's hope? There's hope. There is light at the end of this tunnel. And then he gave this caveat, but we're going to have a couple of dark months before we get there. And so where we are right now is about midway through that first month. And yes, the numbers, the active cases are high, the fatalities are horrendous, the hospitalizations are more than what we need them to be, but we're making progress and we're moving towards that light. Now, let's talk about vaccine. I know you've had different people talk to you about vaccines, and anything you heard from them, I will assure you, is more accurate than what I'm about to tell you. And I will defer to them. And if Corey were here, I would step aside and let Corey tell you about this. But everybody knows that there's a phase 1. There's a phase 1A and a 1B. When we first started this, and I'm an old dog, I learn tricks, but I learn them slowly. When we first started, phase 1 was going to be healthcare providers, phase 1A. Phase 1B was going to be first responders. Phase C was going to be people over 65 or people under 65 with comorbidities. That's what we learned. Well, on the conference call with Dr. Hellerstedt a week and a half ago, they changed it. They didn't ask us. They just came in and changed it and told us they were going to change what they were doing. And what they changed was phase 1B is now people over 65 and people under 65 with comorbidities. That's now 1B. First responders are still they're still getting vaccine to the first responders, but they're not part of 1B anymore. They didn't want to do the designation of qualifying for the vaccine by occupation. They wanted to do it on the basis of age. And that way, the verification was a whole lot easier. Your driver's license entitles you to receive the vaccine. And it put out a whole lot of quibbling in some of the metropolitan areas as whether or not there was discrimination in the distribution of the vaccine. So while we're still doing first responders along with healthcare providers, the 1B will be people over 65. And I think it's important for everybody to know that. The healthcare providers in Kerr County, I'm told, and this is by DSHS, that's at DSHS. I can't say DSHS 3 times in a row without slurring my speech, so I call it DSHS. But they tell us that Kerr County has 3,400 healthcare providers. So we've got to get those 3,400 people, and that includes EMS, we've got to get those 3,400 people vaccinated before the people over 65 can line up to start receiving the vaccination, in theory, okay? As to those of us in Kerr County, and everybody knows Kerr County is a retirement community. Our demographics are such that we have a large number of people over 65, and they're telling us that that's 14,000. And so we're going to have to get out about 17,500 doses of vaccine before we get to the It's bizarre, you know, as pretty much everything with this has been. And by the way, I'm not going to beat the state up, but let me tell you, we've not gotten much guidance or assistance from the state. They basically just tell us what to do and where to be. But the way this is going to happen is we have, I think, over a half a dozen, I don't know exactly the number of providers. These are certified, authorized, approved providers for the vaccine that have been educated and taught what to do. We have over half a dozen of them here in Kerr County. Peterson, each HEB, Peterson got about 500 doses. Each HEB got 100 doses each. You've got medical arts pharmacy, you've got family practice. You know, there's several others that have gotten this. Each of the smaller ones have gotten about 100 each. And so you can see it takes a long time to be able to exhaust the number of healthcare providers we have before any one of us are going to see that vaccine. And I get asked this regularly, and I don't mind telling you, I have not been vaccinated yet. I plan to be vaccinated when it's my time. We have taken polls at the courthouse. We know the number of people there that are willing to be vaccinated and the number that are not. And there is an alarmingly high percentage of people in the community that are not going to be vaccinated. That doesn't bode well for us for the future, but it is what it is, and no one's required to take it if they don't want to. But those are some of the numbers. Now, with regard, I'm going to step to the side. Can you still hear me? I got to wander around a little bit. For those providers, those shipments are sent directly to them, not to the county, not to the city, not to the state, to the providers. And CVS and Walgreens have federal contracts with the nursing homes. The state has provided their own set of vaccine for the state hospital. The feds have also provided the vaccine for the VA hospital. So those have all been done independently. But the shipments go directly to the provider. The provider has their own registration forms. And unfortunately, not all the providers use the same registration form. So we've got about a half a dozen different forms that need to be filled out in order for people to be able to get their vaccine, depending on where they're getting it. And they have their own wait list. You can get on the wait list at one HEB. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to qualify to get it from Medical Arts. Medical Arts has the doses. And so we had a big conference last week. All the local providers, the emergency management from the city and from the county, got together and we talked about this. And it was a long conference call. I spend a lot of time listening on telephones these days, by the way. And I spent about 45 minutes listening to this call, and I was completely exasperated because the right hand and the left hand don't know what the other's doing. And they're not necessarily cooperating. They've got doses. And we were kind of having, you know, I'll trade you some of my doses for this and that. Was the discussion. And there was no central clearinghouse. And I'm proud to tell you that Dub Thomas, who is our emergency management coordinator for the county, and who is a retired lieutenant with the DPS, who is a very, very capable emergency manager. And I see Dennis back there, and he is an Aggie, of course. But Doug chimed up and said, we need to have a central call center. We need to have a central waiting list registration, and volunteered the county to bring our CERT team. Now, have people know what a CERT team is? That's the Community Emergency Response Team. I took that training 3 years ago before I took this job, and it was probably the most rigorous training I've been through since I was in the Army. But I mean, we had to carry people on blankets, and I mean, it was a mess, but it was very worthwhile. But we have about, somewhere between right at 30 volunteers with the CERT team. And Dub has volunteered the county's CERT team to man a central call center. And they're going to be open Mondays through Fridays, 8 to 5. We're not going to open it until we get the doses. But once we get the doses, they'll be open, and they're going to pre-register people. We're going to work with Schreiner University, the nursing students at Schreiner University. They're going to help us with the pre-registration, the medical screening, and they'll even be part of administering the vaccine itself. But we're going to have the call center. That's the number I gave you earlier, the 830-315-5900, 1, 2, 3, and 4. That will be staffed during the week in order to be able to coordinate these waiting lists. If you're on an HEB waiting list and you're on a medical arts waiting list, they're going to be able to get you to where the vaccine is. Now, having said that, that's something that we did locally. We did that with the fire department, the police department, the city's emergency management, the county's emergency management, and the sheriff's department. That's how we coordinated all this, to try to put together a central clearinghouse to be able to do this for the public. But at the same time, as we're doing that, we don't have the vaccines. And so what we're really waiting for is the vaccines to come. So that's pretty much where we are with all that. The last thing I want to say about COVID in my conversations in the conference call with Dr. Hellerstedt, he emphasized that whatever doses a community has, regardless of who is the provider, regardless of whether or not you are 1A or 1B or the public, no dose is to be left on the shelf. Every dose is to be administered as it comes in. You don't save anybody for anyone. You don't keep it for somebody that you're saving for next week. Every dose is to be used as it is shipped to inoculate as many people as we possibly can. So that's kind of where we are on that. We're waiting for the mass shipments. When the mass shipment comes, we're not going to have you stand in line at HEB. We're not going to have you stand in line at Peterson to try to get your shots. We're going to work. We have places to just like we did with the flu clinic. We'll be out at the Hill Country Youth Event Center. We made arrangements at the gym at the Methodist Church, the First Presbyterian Church, Calvary Temple. We're working on some others. There will be locations for you to go to receive this, and all of that will be disseminated to the public. Now, how many folks in the room are on Code Red? Not as many. And distributed through Code Red. You'll be able to get it in the paper. There'll be press releases. We'll do this with belts and suspenders. But if you really want to be the first one to know what's going on, it'll be on Code Red. And Dub is the one that manages Code Red. So the good news and the bad news. Bad news is we're still in the middle of it. Got a couple of dark months to go. Good news is there's light at the end of this tunnel. Yes, sir.
Is it possible to go to another part of the state and get?
Yes. Did everybody hear his question? The vaccine, the distribution of the vaccine is not home county related. You can get it in Bernie, you can get it in Bexar County, you can get it wherever you are. If you're in a different part of the state and it's available, you can get it. It's not, you don't have to come back home to get your vaccination. Yes, sir.
I don't know how they keep up with that. Say somebody is tested positive for the COVID on the 15th of December. When do they get taken off of the list? I mean, do they just say, okay, in 2 weeks,
Are you talking about the active list, or are you talking about being qualified for the vaccine, or what? Okay, in the determination of active cases, if a member of a household has tested positive, they're listed as active. And every other member in that household is listed as a presumptive active, which means active, whether they've been tested or not, and many of them remain asymptomatic, but nonetheless they're counted. That skews the numbers a little bit, but not materially. And the other thing is, if you want to be tested, you can't be tested unless you're symptomatic. We were talking about that at our table at lunch. If you go in there right now and you feel fine and you don't have a temperature and you don't have any of the other symptoms, you're not going to get a test. You have to be sick in order to find out if you're sick. I didn't make the rules up. It's just the way, y'all want to know what's going on? This is what's going on.
So when do you get off that active list?
14 days. What they automatically, Dishes is the one that does it. They automatically rotate you off that active list at the end of 14 days unless they're notified otherwise. Jeff.
Judge, you said you can go to a different county and get the vaccination. When it comes to Kerr County, say I went to San Antonio and got it, could I get Part B in Kerr County, or would I have to go back to San Antonio to get Part B?
You're going to be one of those people that the volunteers on that call line are going to have to negotiate that, because right now what we're talking about doing locally is when you go in and we're getting Moderna. Everybody knows I don't have to go over the difference between Pfizer and Moderna. We don't have the ultra cold capacity here, so we're getting Moderna. And I think Moderna is what, 28 days? Okay. When you go to get your first shot here in Kerr County, I'm trying to respond to Jeff, but you're going to have to coordinate it if you do it in different counties. I can just tell you that. But if you're doing it here, if you get your first shot here, you are automatically going to be put down for your follow-up appointment for the second shot, the exact number of days from when you go in at the exact same time. That's going to be the presumptive second shot appointment. So that we don't have to go through all this, well, I buy groceries on Thursdays and I can't do it. We're not going to do that. Yes, ma'am.
So last month, there was an exposure at our office, and we all had to go get tested. And the hospital sent us to a little clinic set up inside of the medical center right by the movie theater, and nobody was sick. We just told them that we had a possible exposure, and for $75 we got tested. Is that shut down now?
I don't think so. No. Not that I know of.
So you can still get tested there if you're not sick?
Well, I'm just telling you, if you go to Peterson, you're not going to be tested unless you're symptomatic.
Yeah, that's what Peterson told us. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, that's good. I just want to make sure that was still up and running.
Well, let's talk about the different counties for a minute, because Jeff's opened up it's not Pandora's box, but it's an interesting box. Kerr County's got 3,400 healthcare providers because we've got the hospital and we got the doctors. Kendall County's already started administering 1B shots because their healthcare facilities are in Bear County, by and large. They have a couple of little clinics. They went through them in no time. And so if you really want your shot and you can find a way to get it in Bernie, you can get it in Bernie. There's some places you can get it in San Antonio. I don't know all the ins and outs of that. Like I told you, I'm waiting in line just like everybody else. But Bernie actually is they are administering some 1B shots. So yes, ma'am, Tammy.
I'm sorry, can you ask our virtual guests if they have any questions?
Sure, okay. Virtual guests, do y'all have questions?
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think one of the problems we have here in Kerr County is the fact that if you want to go visit a loved one in an assisted living center, you have to show proof of a negative COVID test. And yet, when you go to take the test, you're asked these questions, and if you're healthy, they will not give you the test.
That's what I've been saying. I don't have an answer for that. I'm not in charge of that. Well, let me answer this question. It depends on whether it's the rapid antigen test. The rapid antigen test you can get probably within the hour. The other test, I think it's usually a day or two. I don't think there's a definite number, but something like that. Let's quickly talk about a couple other things that I think you find, I think that are interesting. But let me kind of fast forward to the Public Defender's Office. Everybody watches television and all these crime series, right? And they say, you have the right to an attorney, you have the right to remain silent. Everybody heard that? When they say you have a right to an attorney, that's guaranteed by the United States Constitution, right? Who pays for it? The county. The county pays for it. The Constitution guarantees it. The feds say, you do it, state. State looks at it and says, you do it, county. We have no one to dump it on, so it lands on the taxpayers. So the indigent defense that is provided in this country is provided at the local level. That's why my focus is back on local level again. I can't change what's going on in Washington or Austin, but we can do something here. Our Kerr County last year spent over $700,000 on indigent defense. And that's for people that come off the wheel and they're working at $70 and $75 an hour. Now, for those of you in this room that I have worked with professionally, I haven't worked at $75 an hour since I got out of law school. And that was, remember the 45-year thing was a long time ago. That's at deeply discounted rates that we're paying $700,000. What happened to us a year ago is we were approached by the TIDC, Texas Indigent Defense Commission. And they wanted us to look into doing a 3-county public defender's office. 3 counties because our 216th District Court is Gillespie and Kerr, and the 198th is Kerr and Mandera, so they thought 3 counties would be good. And they're trying to do regional public defender's office, and they have a lot of federal grant money to do this. And they approached us, and hook or crook, we just couldn't agree. We got a letter of intent on file, but we never got anything done. This year, I had the county judge in Medina County, Judge Schuhart, another good Aggie, approach me and say, I want to be in with y'all. And so we looked at a 4-county with the TIDC, a 4-county public defender's office. And then I got to thinking, well, you know, Darrell Luck's my good friend in Kendall County. If he doesn't join us, he's going to get left out because there's another PDO on the other side of him. So I called him and said, do you want to be in? He says, I'm in. So we now have a 5-county. We applied and we now have obtained the grant. And we're opening the office and we have hired the chief public defender for a 5-county public defender's office. And that is Medina, Bandera, Kerr, Gillespie, and Kendall. It is funded, we got a $2.5 million grant from TIDC. They had $5 million in grants to give. They gave us half of it. We have become the envy of the state with this public defender's office, I'm telling you. We have chiefs from other PDOs calling us to want to come to work for us. This will be the largest law firm between San Antonio and Lubbock if you go north and El Paso if you go west. It's bigger than anything in San Angelo or Midland or Odessa. 31 members, 10 staff positions, 21 lawyers. And we'll handle all the criminal defense between Hondo, Castroville, up to Gillespie, to Fredericksburg, and to Bernie. So this is a big deal. And you've heard about something, I'm blending here what we're doing with the capital improvements. You've heard that we bought this, what we call Earl Garrett campus. The old Church of Christ building there, the Sunday school building, the old chapel, the parking lot behind the police station. We purchased all of that. And we're going to house the public defender's office there as well as for county expansion on the first floor. Public defender's office will be the entire second floor of that building. We hired our chief public defender has been hired. He started January 1, and his name is John Bull. He is a retired presiding judge of all the municipal courts in San Antonio, which are 22 judges. He supervised over 150 people, managed a $30 million budget, and is agreeing to relocate. He and his wife are going to move up here and live in one of the 5 counties. That's one of our requirements, is to move them here. This is a big economic development boost that we're doing. We will have 2 offices, the Kerrville office and a Hondo office. We will have some space in the Medina County Courthouse in Hondo. We expect to have probably 6 prosecutors, defenders there, not prosecutors, these are the opposite of prosecutors. We'll have 6 defenders there with about 4 staff people. John is in the process right now of beginning to hire the people to staff this office. And it is expected that in the first year that this office is open, if we're fully staffed, Kerr County will save $300,000. The expense for the lease, the office operations, everything is borne pro rata by the 5 counties and is going to be on the basis of caseloads. We'll be counting cases every year to determine what percentage each county pays. And Kerr County is starting at 38%. We have 38% of the caseload at this point. But that's something that's coming that you'll hear more about, but I just wanted to give you a preview of it. And so I think my time's up. Bill, you got one more? Federal poverty line, pretty much. We determined we have indigent health care that we provide for people that can't afford to pay their hospital bills. We cover that also. We do the poverty line when we do our paupers burials. That's based on whether or not you satisfy those requirements. It'll be the same standard. It's pretty much, if you just think of who gets the free breakfast and lunches at school, that's the standard.
That's kind of determined too. Somebody goes to jail, they do a questionnaire, I guess, is that correct? To determine if they're indigent and they need public defense? Or is it?
That's part of the magistration process, and I got to turn this back over to Tammy, but let me just say that one of the things we're trying to do is to get these public defenders to be present at the magistration process so that these lawyers can be appointed at that time. And the requirement in the PDO will be that a prosecutor has to meet with an inmate in jail within 48 hours from when they've been appointed. And right now it goes as far as a year before they meet with them. Yes, sir.
Many people here know, Keith, would you mind commenting who's going to run this?
Yes, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
We fought very hard with TIDC, and this is the reason that so many people across the state like what we did. We have complete local control. It's an 11-member board. Each one of the county judges will be a permanent member of the board, that oversight board that runs the PDO, so that we'll have hands-on what's going on. Each of the 5 counties has 2 members of the board, except Kerr County that will have 3. And the chairman of the board to run this oversight committee, to run the PDO, is retired Judge Keith Williams. And we recently elected him, and he's agreed to do this. So that's how we're running it. It will all be locally accountable. So I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Judge, will you be around if anybody has questions after? Sure. You have great topics. Thank you so much. I'd like to, is Stephanie Miller online? Christy, I don't know if Stephanie is online, but we have a lot to say about.
She is not.
She is not. Okay, so would you like to do Families in Rotary, or do you want me to?
You do it. You got all the
Okay.
info.
Okay, I ran into Dr. Cynthia McNeely at the store, and she looked frazzled, and we visited, and I found out why she looked frazzled. Her father is in the hospital due to visitation limitations. Only one person can be there and basically kind of be there 24/7. So her sister is doing that, which leaves her mother by herself. So she and Mike have been going back and forth to Denton, trying to take care of both her parents, ask for permission to ask Rotary to pray for her. So if you could please pray for them to have strength and healing and comfort, because it's a lot they're going through. Also, satellite member Denise Lemillier's mother their home was in a fire over the weekend, and they've lost their home and all the belongings. I wanted you to know that we are a giving community, and Denise knows this. So she put out a comment statement to say she knows that people are going to want to help because that's just who we are, but hold on until they know what they need. So if you hear that this happened, just hold on. Denise is going to let us know what her mom and her brother need. So that's somebody else to please pray for, and we'll give you more information if there's some way we can help her mom. I visited yesterday and today with Gina Daniels, who has left. Her husband, Jim, had had some medical episodes, and we asked that you pray for him. We think it could, she said she thinks it could be just medication, but we'll see. So just say a prayer for healing for Jim. Also, I was going to tell you that Dave Rittenhouse is in the hospital, but I don't think that he is because I saw him online. Dave, do you want to tell us that you're well?
It takes a while to unmute. Goodness gracious.
That's okay.
Okay, I'm off mute. I'm home, but I wasn't.
Yay.
I was in hospital from Friday morning until last night. Apparently had some kind of infection that impacted my heart rate. So
But you're doing better in your home now.
they seem to have finally figured out how to fix it. So
Great. It was just so good to see your home background. Well, the first to see your face and then see that you were home. So thank you so much.
Yep.
And last, I told you we had a long list, and we do. Please pray for Phyllis Ricks, who's just recovering from a minor injury. But that's a lot of our members that are affected by something. So let's just keep them in our thoughts and our prayers. I'd like to invite Jeff Harris to come up and invite to introduce our guest. And I think he's going to want to talk to us about some stuff. So.
Well, first and foremost, we'll get to our guest today, who is our newest member to the community, that I'd like to say so. He's also a Rotarian, former Rotarian from Hobbs, New Mexico, and he's also the new chief of police for Kerrville, and we're very happy to have him with us. Charlie, if you'd like to introduce your guest to us today, please.
Kevin mentioned our guest today is a 9-year Rotarian from Hobbs, New Mexico Club, and he has joined the community here, the police chief, so we're excited to have Chris McCall today.
Chris, thank you for joining us today, and everything I've heard about you, sir, is correct. You are tall. So thank you for joining us, and hope we'll see you here again with us more often than not, sir. Yes. Wonderful. Well, we look forward to it very much. So speaking of law enforcement and first responders, I'm going to jump into this real quick. We have decided that on February the 3rd, as everything's going kind of weird and hokey right now, we are going to postpone our first responders luncheon. We feel that it's the responsible thing to do with as big a turnout as this always is for us. In accordance with Judge Kelly and what we've talked about with some other things with Rotary, we want to make sure that everybody in the county is happy and safe. So the new date for the first responders lunch and award ceremony is going to be Wednesday, April the 7th. We've also deemed that week First Responders Week for Kerr County, because on the 12th of April, it's going to be our golf tournament, Comanche Trace. So another wonderful event out there for us. We're looking forward to it. We'll have more information on that as well. So April the 12th, golf tournament. April the 7th, Wednesday, is going to be First Responders Luncheon. And with that, Rotary's main event. Oh no, I wasn't going to forget that, Tammy. So Rotary main event, we're going to have our raffle tickets are going to be out. Your fundraising committee is going to meet tomorrow evening at 5:30 at Monroe's at the corner of G and Water Street. We've got some great ideas, brainstorming some great things that are going to be presented. We have cut the $20,000 gift card back to $10,000, as we talked about before. We have several items that are going to be on the ticket that are well over. We don't have anything less than $600 on the ticket that's been donated. We are also going to do a virtual live auction. So kind of like we used to do at the Ag Barn, the Hill Country Youth Event Center, where we would go through and have the silent auction. It is going to be a virtual online auction. And let me tell you, we are going to have some things on there that everybody is going to want to look at, bid on. And I'm going to say thanks to Mark Disdar, because he's done something for the club that is pretty amazing. So y'all will have the opportunity to look at that. So tomorrow evening at Monroe's at 5:30. If anybody would like to just come and listen to what the fundraising committee is going to do and what we're talking about doing. So thank you all so much for your time. Again, Chief, thank you for joining us. And Judge, thank you for your presentation. It was phenomenal. Thank you.
Okay, guys, we do have some announcements. One thing, Clint, I'm gonna have to give it to you in real time because it just happened right before I walked in, but Chief Maloney is not gonna participate next week. He's in the middle of a pandemic, of course, and is just said he couldn't. So he's not gonna be here, but hopefully we will still have Chief McCall and Sheriff Letha. So then also, we have to talk about invoices. Invoices went out. Our board met yesterday. It looks like everything's going pretty well. I know it was hard to be able to make that change to include lunches, don't include lunches. Are you coming, not coming? I know it's hard, but it looks like that people are communicating well with Gina. And just remember, that's a hard job for her to keep up with 140 people on what they're going to do in a given week. So just remember that when you're trying to get your invoices straight. We don't want you to pay if you're not coming, but we do need to get them paid if you are. So thank you so much for the patience that you've had with that. We have a blood drive that's going to be in February. I'll get you up to date on that. I don't really know. I don't really have anything else. Does anybody else have anything for the good of the club? Yes, Charlie.
We do have a new member orientation this afternoon at 4:30. It's a Zoom format, so you need to go to the orientation program, let me know.
Okay, and for our virtual guests, Charlie said that the new member orientation is today via Zoom. If you haven't been contacted and you need to participate, please get a hold of Charlie. Okay, all right. Well, and y'all are going to be surprised because I always keep trying to tell us what a good job we're doing as a club during a pandemic. We've never stopped. We've helped people. All of our service projects have been done. But on the 27th, we are inducting 8 new members in addition to all the things that we've done. So, I mean, it's just been active. We're just great people of action. Okay, and with that, if you'll join me in the 4-way test. Of the things that we think, say, or do, is it the truth?
The truth?
Is it fair
Is
to
it
all
fair to all
concerned?
concerned?
Will it build
Will it
goodwill
build
and better
goodwill and better
friendship?
friendship?
Will it be
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?